Well, hello and welcome to Real Moms Only, our second episode. And this week I've brought a very good friend of mine. I'm excited to introduce her to you in just a moment. But I wanted to talk about this week's topic. So, if you've been following along on social media, I've been asking for people to give us some questions, things that they're worried about, thinking about, questions that they have. And this question, when my girlfriend put it on social media, which I thought was brave just to begin with, she said, what to do when our teenagers are acting up, acting out, giving us a run for our money, and how to deal with that as a mom. Like, what do we do about our feelings about that? And then also, how do we deal with the emotional roller coaster that comes with the judgment or the people talking about you behind your back? And you know what? I have been there more times than I would like to count. So currently, for those of you that don't know, I have 16 children, and currently 10 are living at home. And I think I'm down to 7 teenagers now because one child recently went into her 20s. So I'm 7 teenagers in. I have a little bit of experience because I have 6 children that are over 20. So I guess I've got experience with 13 teenagers, which is also a teenage number. And they have all at one point or another given me a run for my money and given me lots of opportunity to be right in the position she was talking about. So I'd like to introduce Rachel Godin. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, thanks.
Oh my gosh. So Rachel and I have been friends for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
We became friends because when I started our organization to serve families of fallen service members, Rachel joined. And I'm so glad you did because I made a really great friend out of it. I think that's been the most fun part about serving these families is the great friends we've made along the way. And at the time, when 10 years ago, Taylor was
5.
Taylor was 5, and you had not yet completed your family,
Right?
right?
Right.
You've added some children since then. You've adopted some children. That's something else we have in common. Rachel, tell us just a little bit about your family.
So I have 6 kids. My oldest is
Busy.
18.
Oh, yep,
So,
that's lots of fun.
yeah,
Now a legal adult. We love that. Okay.
4 teenagers currently.
Okay.
And then 2 younger ones. I'm a stay-at-home mom. We homeschool.
And it's been a fun ride.
It's been a ride.
It's been a ride. It's been a ride. That's fantastic. So 4 teenagers, you've got more experience with teenagers than most people. Oldest is 18, whole new era.
Yes.
Because now we're a legal adult, which comes with like all kinds of wonderful and terrifying ramifications.
Right.
Yep, that's lots of fun. We've had plenty of conversations about, the challenges this kid is giving or that kid is giving my family, your family, and being faced with like, oh my gosh, can you even believe this just happened? So tell us we are real moms and we have real children. They don't walk on water. They have all kinds of stuff they're working out and stuff they're figuring out. But I told Rachel, and I believe this from the bottom of my heart, like when we're talking about the challenges that we're facing with our kids, we should be as real and authentic as we want to be, but also respect the privacy of our children. So if it seems like we're talking a little bit around in circles or whatever, we're also trying to respect the children that we're trying to raise. Like we want to help other moms and encourage them, but we also don't want our kids to be like, how could you have told the whole world that, I did this? So yes, all of that and more. So tell me a little bit about the first time you and I broached this subject.
Yes. So like I said, my oldest is 18, and a lot of the circles that we walked in through church or homeschooling or what have you,
right?
My kids were the older ones.
That's really a tough spot to be in.
Which I didn't realize until a certain point. So we walked through some different things before everybody else, which is fine, but it was just different challenges. And I remember one time, one of my kids had done something, and thinking back on it now, like I don't even remember what he did, but in the moment, it felt like my world had ended.
Yeah,
like I was a bad mom.
Yeah,
I wasn't doing the job that I was supposed to be doing. Wasn't raising my kids right. Like all the things that I was striving to do, I felt like a failure.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah. And the first thing about that is what I learned because it does feel so personally. Like when that weight comes falling down on you, your kid's done something that is, really not good. And it's affected other kids.
Right.
Okay. So now you're finding out about it because, Joey's mom is telling you, or Susie's mom is telling you. So
Right.
now we've got a nice spray of crap everywhere.
Right.
So, okay. So now I'm affected.
Right.
I'm in the limelight really quickly. And of course, first, how this happens can greatly affect how you internalize it.
Sure.
If the parent comes to you and says, so my kids have all done their fair share of crap, and I'm telling you this week, but you're probably going to tell me something else next week. So like, I'm telling you because I love you and I care about your kid. That's one thing. But if this parent's coming at you and they're like, loaded guns a-blazing, and they tell you all these things in almost a prideful way that your kid's done wrong and it's affected their little sweetheart who's never done anything and would never consider doing such a thing. Now you're like, you're upset because this is your life's work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that had a lot to do with it. Like you said, the way that I was approached about it also.
Yeah.
My kid would never. And I just remember thinking, you're right, your kid would never. Like, it's my kid. My kid's the bad kid.
But that's not true.
That's not true at all.
True.
But my vision was clouded by the lies that I was being fed.
Yeah. So. Well, and you and I are both believers. So so you recognize that now as the work of an enemy who's like, the lady wasn't trying to be an enemy, but the spirit behind it was, you're a failure.
Right.
And that's so stymieing in the moment because, well, if you failed all along, what are you going to do about it now?
Right.
What can you possibly do? That feeling of, okay, this kid's 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, however old they are, 19, whatever age they are when you first get hit with this. And I kind of firmly believe nobody gets out of parenting unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody's kids are perfect. The length and depth and breadth that they might have trouble that they might get into could vary wildly, but nobody's kid is perfect. So at some point, every parent's going to eat their humble pie.
Right.
This person just might not have been served theirs yet.
Right.
They were happily serving you yours.
Yes.
Yes. And so you felt like, okay, everything I was a failure.
Right. And like you said, like as a stay-at-home mom, as a homeschooling mom, I've devoted, at that point, it would have been 16 years to this work. And so if I failed, like I've wasted my whole life in my mind.
Yeah.
But that's not true at all.
It's not true. And I remember exactly the moment that I had those same exact feelings when I was faced with something that one of my kids was getting into trouble with. And it was so heartbreaking. And I know personally myself, looking back now, that was like, maybe 12, 13 years ago. I'm guessing, I'm not doing the exact math, but it was a while ago. I realize now that my viewpoint was faulty at the time. I felt like if I teach my children the scriptures, I teach them right from wrong as best I can. I'm a good example. They have a wonderful dad. I give them all these opportunities. Whatever the thing is that we think we're building, then we shouldn't have these struggles.
Right.
Or if we do, it's not going to be a big deal. Boy, did I underestimate.
Right.
I realize now, like, that whole feeling was because I thought I could do it. And looking back now, that's almost comical because, depending upon your view of how long the Earth's been around, like for thousands of years, ain't nobody got it all right.
Right. Yes.
Like, what was I thinking? I'm going to be the first parent to get this right? Like, okay, you might have been a little prideful, Lyette. That might have been really, really foolish to think that. And it's not that I thought I'd done it all right, but I figured I'd gotten enough right that I wouldn't be dealing with this.
Yes.
And it was just a real eye-opener. And I will tell you that that moment in my life marked the beginning of a struggle that had been going on for a lot longer than I realized. It had been really a problem for probably 5 years before I even knew it. And it took the wind out of my sails and the joy out of my life for a solid 3 years. Like there was 3 years that I was just so hurt and so worried, and but probably with a lot of good reason. I was very concerned for this one kid, but like uh, it just sucked everything out of me so fast. Now, the good thing, that came out of that was this organization that we started, right? Because I had to throw my mind and brain somewhere else, or I was going to lose my mind.
Sure.
So out of that heartbreak, I decided to start serving people that were hurting more than I was, which was these Gold Star families. But so that's one good thing that came out of it. But I was so foolish and prideful. I remember speaking with this one dad, and I think he was maybe 10 or 15 years older than me. He was a Gold Star dad, actually. And his daughter had been a total nightmare from like 12 to, and at this point she was like 25. She was still a nightmare. And in my mind, we're talking about, I'm sharing with him some of the challenges that I'm facing. And he, and in my mind, and I'm sure I was like justifying how we were going to come out of this. Like, it's all going to be over with in probably a few weeks or months. We're going to get through this, And I'll never forget him looking at me and saying point blank, what if this child never changes? What if they never repent? What if they never turn around? What if they never, ever, ever, ever acknowledge that this decision or these things that they're getting mixed up in are bad, wrong, unhealthy, whatever? Then what are you going to do? And I was like, that thought had not entered my mind. I still thought that I could plow through, and this was gonna, and it's, all these years later, we're still dealing with some of these challenges. So it was a few years before my husband and I were at an event with the kids. And it was actually, we were at a Blue Angels. The Blue Angels had come to Vero Beach, and I took the kids with my husband up there, and I was so excited because I wanted to see them my whole life. And I'll never forget, I was so excited as they flew by, and my husband literally said, well, there she is. And I looked at him, and he goes, I have not seen that smile in 3 years. You have not smiled like that for 3 years. That's how affected I was by the challenges that we were facing. And those challenges came with a lot of what you're talking about. People whispering and judging, and maybe I'd earned some of that rightfully because I pridefully thought we couldn't be faced with this, that, or the other because we'd done these or that things, but it was actually, it was a quick quote I read by Lisa Turkhurst, and I have to admit I didn't read the book, but she wrote in her book, and it came across my social media one day. She said, we think that life is like a vending machine. If we put our 50 cents in, we're going to get our Coca-Cola. And if we don't get our Coca-Cola, we're kicking and screaming at the machine, right? And I had really felt like, as a parent, I put my 50 cents in. Now give me my dang Coca-Cola. And I wasn't getting it. So when you were faced with this challenge, talk to me a little bit about how did you navigate through that?
It was hard. I kept my head down for a while. I knew there were whispers. I felt very isolated, very alone. And I think one day I finally, probably at least several weeks had passed, if not months. Okay. And I remember coming to you and just saying, my kid messed up.
Yeah.
And I remember what you said.
What I say?
You're like, so? I was like, what? You're not mad at me? Like, you're not going to judge me? And you're like, everyone messes up.
Everybody, every kid. And I think that the thing that's so difficult too for parents now is like the things our kids can get into trouble with so quickly.
Yeah.
And it's so dangerous. And, I've had parents come to me and their kid, posted inappropriate pictures or whatever the thing may be. And that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to make light of it at all. But I think that if we all knew how common that problem was, we would be less mortified for our children. Yes, we got to do something about it. Yes, we got to try and clean up. And I'm really thankful recently a law was passed to get it taken down. legally. The person posting that things or sharing those things can be held responsible legally, which I imagine is going to pose problems for parents in other ways because they're not going to recognize that their kid was the one posting it.
Right.
You know, but all that to say that if we only knew the depth and breadth of the problems that our kids are getting into online that we never really had to deal with growing up, if we really knew, like if we had 100 moms sitting here of teenagers, I think they'd all be shocked if they really knew what their kids were saying or doing or getting into online.
Right.
It was several years ago. I was in I wrote a parenting book called Please God, Don't Let Me Screw This Up. Spoiler alert, I screwed it up. So, and I was at a book signing and this mother came up and at the, I always talk for a few minutes before the book signing and I spoke for like 15 minutes. This mom comes up and she asked me to sign the book. And she says, she goes, you were talking about problems that your kids had gotten into. And I have two boys, 15 and 17. And they've just never, they've never looked at porn. They've never, they just don't have those kinds of struggles. And I remember looking at my assistant and I just looked at her and I said, should I tell her or should you? And the mom was so puzzled. And I was like, they totally have. You just don't know.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you this. I hate to burst your bubble, but there is no world in which your kid has not seen or gotten into any of this because it's so accessible.
Yeah.
And they're coming for our kids. They are coming for them, even if it's just Instagram. And there's stuff that I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
that it's everywhere. So I just wish that more parents, and I think eventually most of us get there where we're like, could be my kid next week.
Yeah.
Could be my kid right now. And I don't even know it.
Right.
Could be my kid right now. And I don't even know it. I always, people will ask me, they'll say, how are the kids? How's your family doing? And, I used to say, oh, everybody's doing great, blah, blah, blah. And, nobody wants to hear all your crap all the time.
Right.
But now I have a new answer. My new answer is, as far as I know, everything's going okay. But I fully and humbly admit there might be a lot of things I don't know going on. There might be a lot of problems that I don't know about. And I do, I pray all the time, okay, God, show me the things that I need to see and deal with.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, not so much all at once. I don't need to see that much at once. How about you just give me 1, 2, maybe 3 things to work on, not all of that. What are some things that right now, either you or a friend has shared with that you're struggling through as a mom?
I think technology is a big thing. There's just so much out there and so much that as much as I try to keep up or anyone tries to keep up, it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And so once I finally learned one thing, we've already moved on to something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Oh, that's one of my favorites. You put up, I'm not going to name any programs that you can purchase, but you put up a certain program over your kids' phones or devices that's supposed to keep them from looking at bad stuff. They just look it up somewhere else, how to get around it.
YouTube.
Yeah. Somebody's already told them how to get around it. Somebody's already told them, how to reset things the cameras that you might have around your house.
Yes.
Kids have already learned how to.
Oh, yes. They're very smart.
Oh, they're so smart. They're so smart. The technology thing. I remember one time there was a group that said, hey, we'd like you and David to come speak to us about, kids and technology and how you handle it. And I was like, it's a losing battle.
Yeah.
And then they were like, what are you talking about? We were looking to you for hope. I was like, there is none. We're screwed. There's just no way around it. You try everything you can.
Yeah.
And there's just, I don't want to say there's no winning, but the issue isn't, okay, so here's the thing. The issue isn't, what programs can we use to stop them from doing this?
Right.
Nope.
Right.
The issue is that the child young adult, teen, adolescent, whatever, has to choose to not do it.
Right.
And that could be a really messy process. And it could involve, things like attorneys.
Right.
It could involve police. It could involve the school.
Yeah.
It could involve so many different things and people and real trouble. But at the end of the day, you can't sit there and say, well, if I'd have only had XYZ program.
Right.
Because the kid was going to figure it out anyways. And it's really about their heart and determination.
Right. Right. You can't monitor them their entire life. At some point, they have to take responsibility.
You can't. And I've heard all kinds of arguments. I will say with my older children, I waited really, 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 really long and late to get them cell phones. Really, really, really long and late to let them have social media. Most of that was fear-based.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a great way to go about it. Now, a lot of my teens have phones. A lot of them have social media. Not everybody, not all the teens do. Not all the teens have phones that have access to that kind of thing. It's a very individual choice.
Right.
What kid gets what kind of phone, gets what kind of access. But you're going to have to walk through that with them, right? You're talking about technology. You're going to have to walk through social media. What are you looking at? Who are you friending?
Right.
What are we talking about? What are we, but they're going to mess that up.
Right.
They're going to say and do things on social media that you're not going to.
Yes.
You're not going to like. I remember one time because I had 6 girls in a row, and then I started having these teenage boys. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I don't understand how the human race survived personally after having teenage boys, but, I called this one leader in our church because she had teenage boys, and I asked her a question about social media and teenage boys, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "Are you asking me this because it's something my kids have done?" I was like, "No, I'm honestly asking because I want help on how to manage this with boys. I do not have this problem with the girls. I have some problems with the boys, and I just want to navigate through it properly," and her response was pretty much what I'm sharing with you, what I'm sharing with all of you, is that they're going to have access at some point. You can decide when. If you want to wait to get them a phone, you might be surprised that they already have a phone.
Yes. Or they already have an account on a friend's phone.
Definitely. You might be surprised to find out who they're talking to through very innocent apps.
Right.
You might be surprised what apps they have that are hidden behind other apps meant to hide apps.
Yes.
Right? I don't want to sound like there's no hope for this battle. I just want everybody to be aware that, you might think you're on top of it, and you might just have a really bright kid who's really good. You might have a great kid, but you also might have a kid who's just really good at hiding it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That is a challenge. That is a challenge. So let's switch subjects for a minute here. What to do about when we feel others are judging us, are whispering or talking.
Yeah.
What did you learn through that?
I mean, honestly, just being open about it. I don't even know that I shared specifics with you.
Right.
But I just said, hey, I'm having an issue.
Yeah.
And you said, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that released a lot for me. It released a lot of the pressure I was putting on myself.
Yeah.
To be perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect.
Not perfect.
No.
Not perfect at all. Neither am I. I think you're pretty close. But no. So, okay, this is kind of a gross analogy, but follow me here. So last week, okay, I do like to get a pedicure. I like to get my nails done. You're laughing because you know where I'm going with this. I got a pedicure, which resulted in literally the worst infection on my big toe I am not a baby. You guys, I gave birth to 12 children, some of them without medicine. I'm not a baby. You won't hear me complain. This was some of the worst pain I've ever felt. I had to have a little surgery on it. It was awful, and it was so painful, and I'm still, I just want y'all to know, I still am suffering from this. It still hurts 2 weeks later. I was tubed out for 3 days. I could not walk, could not move. It was horrible. Missed an event with students that I would never miss.
Yes.
I would never
Yes.
miss an event with 150 something students. But I missed it because I was in such pain. And, but I had to have surgery. It had to come out in the open. I had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same thing with these issues in our lives. If we don't just come out with it out in the open, if we don't just say, hey, friend, I'm struggling. Like, we can go to God. That is great. And
Right.
we should
Right.
go to Jesus, and we should expect help from him and the Holy Spirit. Absolutely 100%. But if we don't go to a friend and just say, I have real trouble in River City. Here's what just happened. And have somebody go, okay, well, that's awful. But also, yeah, I've been through that 5 times already.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're going to survive this. If we don't get that out, the infection only becomes worse when it's hidden,
Right.
when we don't deal
Right.
with it. If we deal with it and we just let it out in the open, instantly all that pressure goes away. And it didn't matter if 25 other people in your other groups were talking about you.
Right.
You had someone that was like,
well, it was finally someone who finally said, my kids aren't perfect.
Yeah.
And I think I just needed to hear that
Yeah.
to be able to process that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, newsflash, my kids are not perfect at all. I have great kids. I love my children. But there isn't a single one of them that I haven't walked through some really, really fun stuff with that I think, oh, here we go. This is going to be great. And I will be honest with you and tell you that some of it I thought was going to do me in.
Yeah.
Some of it was the type of stuff that I think could have really, I remember one time I texted our girlfriend Amanda and I said, hey, I need prayer. Mm-hmm. And she said, okay, what's going on? I was like, this is the cannon that could sink the boat. This was really, really a big deal. And I will tell you that through every step of the way, God was very faithful and we got through it. Yeah. There have been other times where I've had real trouble with a kid and I had to call, I need help. I need help now. This is a big deal. I've had other times where I've had someone show up at my door and tell me, I don't know if you know that this is happening with this kid, but we got real trouble and we got it. So I've had it all ways. Yeah. I've had it somebody bringing it to me. I've had it, I stumble upon or find something, or the kid tells me something or what have you. And some of it's like, it is the stuff that it could sink your boat if you don't ask for help.
Right. And I think that's so important. The Bible tells us to bear one another's burdens. Yep. And so, I mean, that's what we're supposed to do.
We're supposed to do that for each other. And I'm just going to encourage you that if you don't have that person, listen, I hope you never come to a time in your parenting where you're in such deep water. If somebody doesn't show up right now with a lifeline, like this is a very different situation. I hope you have a church or a community or somebody that you can reach out to. I can tell you, if it weren't for my church, we'd have been in big time trouble. I needed help. Our marriage, we wouldn't have survived some of these things because it's really, really painful. And so if you don't have that community, and you're heading towards those teenage years, find one.
Yeah.
Find it fast.
Right.
Because you're going to need.
Or be that person.
Yeah. Be that person. I would never, ever, ever have chosen to walk through any of the tough stuff I've had to walk through with my kids. But if it makes you feel any better, the stuff that you were sharing with me was like lightweight compared to some of the things that I've had to deal with. And so I'm not saying like I'm so much better. No, I'm not bragging on how terrible my kids are. What I'm saying is like, man, it's okay.
Right.
You're going to get through this.
Right.
And so what, your kid made a mistake. Not so what, deal with the problem. But but at the same time, it's not.
It's going to happen.
And so we talked about how you felt. How has your perspective changed from I'm a failure as a mom to now? Now, how do you see that? When and if should anything ever happen like this again?
Hopefully not today. Well, what I can say is I was at one point one of the parents who, my kid would never.
Yep, me too.
And then I very quickly realized that was not reality. That is not how it is. So I would, at this point, I'm able to kind of just face it and encourage other moms.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that happened. Yeah. I'll pray about it with you. Like, let's pray about it. Yeah. But you're going to get through it one step at a time.
Yeah. I think I learned a few lessons. I think I learned, I had accidentally made my children my career. Mm-hmm. I'd gotten married young. I'd never had a quote unquote career. I had helped my husband along the way and encouraged him and certainly did my part, as a stay at home mom, and homeschooled them. But at the end of the day, I had made them my job. So if something went wrong with my kids, then I had failed at my job.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a real way to look at it.
Right.
What was a real way to look at it was, okay, you're going to be raising tiny humans, and tiny humans are going to grow up to be big humans. Tiny humans make tiny mistakes. Big humans make bigger mistakes.
Right.
I've made plenty of terrible, bad decisions, mistakes. I've sinned lots in my life. Why should I expect less of them? I think I expected them to do better than me because they've been raised knowing things better or differently than I had growing up.
Right.
But that didn't erase the need to learn. I didn't understand that at the time. Now I realize, well, you're going to learn.
Yeah.
I guess we're all about to learn together. We're going to learn. We're all going to learn something that I knew really well if you'd listened to me the first time. But they many times don't choose to listen. They choose to learn. I think that whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a homeschooling mom, a work-from-home mom, a working mom, it's really hard not to take their choices very personally as a reflection of you.
Right.
But that's not real.
No.
They are their own, I always say, you are your own ball of wax. I don't know where that saying came from, but you are your own person. You have, a lot of me in you, a lot of your dad in you. We have some similarities. Maybe you look like me. Maybe you talk like me. Maybe you think through things similar to me. Maybe not. But like, you're going to come up with your own struggles that you're going to have to work through differently than what I came up with,
right?
Or what I had to struggle through. And sometimes the only way to learn through those things is to go through the difficult stuff and make bad decisions.
Right.
That doesn't mean I suck as a mom.
Right. No. And it's not ever fun in the moment. Not ever fun at all.
No.
But what I found is eventually, once we get past things, our relationships are better.
Yeah.
From it.
So here's something really amazing. Last week I was talking about one of my kids that we went through some really rough stuff with, and he's come out the other end. And it was actually last week after we recorded this podcast. He came and sat down next to me on the couch, and we're just, chit-chatting. And boys talk so differently than girls. Girls will just talk to you.
Yeah.
Boys, like, if they start talking to you, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the whole world. Wait a minute. This is it. He's talking to me. And this kid just started talking to me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just said, I'm so sorry. Mm. And I was like, for what? And he just said, for everything that I put us through. Like, I'm so sorry. I wish I had never done that. I wish I could change that. And I said, which I would have never thought I would have said when we were walking through it. I said, I'm sorry that we went through all that too. That's not fun. But now your faith is yours.
Yeah.
It is not mine. You're not going to make those mistakes again because you're going to be afraid to get caught. You're not going to make those same choices because you realize, man, that hurt people that I love. It hurt myself. It hurt, all these areas. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And you would not have known that if you hadn't learned it the hard way.
Right. Right.
So I think the thing that I've learned is, everybody's going to get served their humble pie. It's really hard for me now talking to parents who either have not had that moment or don't want to admit it. Some of them I think, come on, you did not get through this unscathed. Now, come on, you're just not even being, okay, you don't owe me all everything. But sometimes I think to myself, really, you never had? No, wow, okay, must be nice. And I think, no, they're just not.
Yeah.
They're just not, and that's okay. Like nobody owes anybody that, but I think that what it does is it does humble you to recognize how important God is in helping you get through this. Like it is really and truly His grace and mercy that gets you through these situations and makes you stronger for the next round.
Yes.
Yeah, which I hate to say is always coming. I think it's the Navy SEALs that say the only easy day was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's so true in parenting. It's like, okay, well, how much harder does it have to get? I've had enough. But it does. There's bigger and bigger challenges always around the end, just around the bend. And the last thing I wanted to say is I remember with one child of mine in particular who had really just really wreaked a lot of havoc. Things that I don't think that child even realized years later her siblings were dealing with and hurt by. At one point, one of my kids' coaches took it upon themselves to say something in front of the team and kind of hold this sibling accountable for another sibling's decisions, which was horrible, horrible to do to that kid. And that kid came home so upset. What did I have to do with this? I had nothing to do. I wasn't even old enough to recognize what, and I felt so bad. And I told that child, I said, that coach's kids are younger. Mm-hmm. They have no idea the pain they just inflicted on you. No idea the pain that they just inflicted on me, watching me see you in pain. And thank you, I'm already, right. But at the end of it, I said, but as mad as we are, we wouldn't want anybody to feel this way. And so what I finally settled on when it feels like someone's judging me or someone's talking about me or somebody's talking about the choices that my kids have made or things that are going on or what have you is, I'm so glad you don't know what this feels like. Because I don't really wish it on you.
No.
I don't want you to feel this way. I don't want you to find out. I hope you don't find out what this feels like. Because you really wouldn't. Like, even if it's hurting you really bad, you don't want it for somebody else just so that they can feel it.
No, not at all.
You don't want them to learn what that feels like. And I think that that's one thing I'd like to leave everybody with is like when you are feeling judged by others, recognize that it's probably, unfortunately, just a matter of time before that person learns. But if they never do, well, then aren't you glad for them? Because you don't want somebody to feel the hurt that you're feeling. That's not the goal. That's not the goal. That's not the goal. That's not what we want for each other. So we are at 38 minutes.
Wow.
Going longer than I thought. And I'm looking at other things that we could talk about, but I feel like we've covered a lot. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring up or things that you've learned or something helpful or an encouraging something like as you walk through all this fun stuff with kids?
Yeah, it's fun. Truly just enjoy the teenage years, like as hard as it is and as much as you walk through. Like I said, I think you're stronger because of it and your kids come out stronger because of it for the most part.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to share with others and ask for prayer. Like, yes, I'm praying, but how much more powerful is it if my friends are praying too?
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I just last week experienced something kind of cool together. We were praying through a challenge and like within 30 minutes, we saw the needle move.
Yes.
Right? Like we just saw a little something. We're like, you know what? Count that as a win. That was great. We're going to count it. Yeah. He is moving. He is moving. Yeah, I think you're right. Don't be afraid of the teenage years. If you're listening to this and you're bordering on the 12-year-old line and you're worried and we're putting the fear of God in you, please don't go at it like that. I think fortunately ignorance is bliss until you get hit in the head with a rock and then it's like, okay, now we're going to go through it. But I think you do have to enjoy it. I remember a couple of good points that an older, wiser parent said to me the first time I really started seeing all these challenges that we were facing. A couple of things he said: never shut the door. Mm-hmm. Never, ever shut the door on communication totally, no matter what the kid is doing, kid/adult, whatever it is. Never shut the door. No matter how bad you're hurting, no matter how bad the situation is, always keep the lines of communication open, even if it's simply a quick "I love you" text, even if it's a silly meme now and then through social media, because it's so bad. This is really terrible what we're dealing with. Never shut the door. That was a good piece of advice. And the second one was to just never give up hope. Mm. Never give up hope for what could be. And I'm really, really pleased to tell you that this dad that I was sharing with you at the beginning, who said to me, it was a Gold Star dad, and said to me, what if this kid never turns around? I'm glad to say all these years later, that kid of his that was really just a tough nut has turned around.
That's awesome.
Like, it took a long time. But this young lady is doing great. And the family is restored. And, and it just gives me such hope every time I see this family on social media. I think, yep, took a long time, but you know what? That's okay. Yep. I can wait. I can keep praying, and I can keep being worked on myself.
Right.
I can keep working on the things about myself that I can try and improve or see, and so forth. But never give up hope. Never shut the door completely to communication, no matter how badly you're hurt, no matter how bad the hurt is, and never give up hope. Because some of these challenges that we're facing as parents can be humongous. Gosh, we could go on for hours about all that. But Rachel, I really appreciate first your friendship. Appreciate you being brave enough to come on and talk with these moms about the challenges you're facing with 4 teenagers.
Yes.
And listen, I just want to encourage all of you as a mom that you are never out of the fight. There's nothing so big that you can't keep walking through and sledging through one day at a time. Sometimes the holiest thing that you can do is go to bed, go to sleep, wake up. Fight's still going to be there in the morning. Mm-hmm. Still going to be ready to solve in the morning. You just need some sleep to come at it. And if God's mercies are new towards you every day, then his mercies towards your parenting are new every day. His mercies towards your kids are new every day. So be willing to look for the good, look for the wins.
Yeah.
Count the wins. You had a big win last week. What happened in your family last week? At the beach.
Oh, yes.
At the beach.
I was like, I did. Yes.
Yes, you had a win. I saw it.
Yes, my 18-year-old got baptized.
That's a big win.
Yeah.
That's a big win.
It is a big win.
Huge win. Keep that picture safe. Put it as your screensaver on your phone. That's awesome. That is a big win. So thank you, all of you, for listening, for joining us. Listen, if you have questions, if you have subjects that you want us to tackle, please go ahead and leave a comment on social media. Message me if you want it to be private. You don't want to put it out there that this is a challenge that you're facing, or a friend of yours is facing. Maybe not you personally, a friend is facing. And if it's something that I can say I have been through, I will do my best to find somebody and talk through it so that you can be encouraged. And thanks again for joining us at Real Moms Only, where we are with you in the fight every day for your families.